Hello and welcome back to the Fixing Football Podcast, episode 71, and I'm here with Liam O'Meara and Scott Naylor. Boys, how are we doing? Scott, let's start with you. You alright?
Very, very well, thank you. After a week away from the podcast, I'm recharged and ready. How are you doing?
I'm alright. I am a little bit sleep deprived because I had a gig near Bristol for probably about 10 minutes away from Bristol. And if anyone knows, yeah, that is not close to Bolton at all. So I got home at 5:30ish on Sunday morning, then was out of the house for 9 with full family day. So I'm still on catch-up mode, but I'm all right. Liam, how are you doing, mate?
Very good. Think about making that journey to Bristol, then losing 7-1, because I feel I have made that journey to Ashton Gate and seen that happen. So, yes, I'm very well, thank you, Martin. Scott, I can't believe you missed the Arsenal podcast. Something you've been wanting for so long. Hope we did you proud in that with our questions, which I thought were fair. Martin disagrees, but I thought they were fair questions around Arsenal.
I've been an advocate for the Arsenal episode for quite a long time, and was disappointed to miss it. But I thought it was very impartial. Hard-hitting journalism.
There was no pointed questions. They were all open, fair questions. You think?
Yeah, I thought so.
Or they could have been more pointed. I think that's fair. And a little window into our WhatsApp group would tell you what they'd actually look like.
It's a disgusting reality that I hope we never have to go through. Before we get into football stuff, we've got podcast news to get through. Liam, you could take the first one.
Yes. So, as you may know, because we've talked about it constantly in the 2 podcasts we've had since, we are up for an FCA award for Best Podcast on the Premier League. So, please, guys, you'll have seen that we're sharing how to vote for us. Martin's done some great little graphics for that. So, don't let all his hard work go to nothing. Please vote. We would absolutely love it. We've earned them votes, I would say. So, please do it. I've also got and there'll be a link below on how to do that. So please do that.
That's good. Scott, we have other stuff going on.
We do. Very exciting stuff, actually. So Martin, our fearless leader and host, has decided to make the ultimate sacrifice. And there is one of his most prized possessions up for grabs in the very first Fixing Football Podcast competition. So if you check out our socials, you will see that there is a genuine, legitimate, signed Real Madrid David Beckham number 23 shirt that is available. It's going to be a winner drawn at random. All you have to do is click on the link, subscribe to the podcast, as you vote. You can get extra votes for interacting with us on different socials and things, following the Instagram, following the X, and subscribing to the podcast. And you will be in with a chance for historic piece of memorabilia courtesy of our very own Martin Naylor, which I was very surprised he was willing to give it up, but that is how much our fearless leader loves you lot out there.
To be honest, setting myself the unrealistic goal of 1,000 subscribers by Christmas prompted me to do something drastic. So that's what it's in aid of. It's in aid of growing this podcast, which I love doing.
Is it a short sleeve or long sleeve shirt?
It's short sleeved.
Just don't get many long sleeve shirts these days, do you?
No,
you don't. Funnily enough, Joao Felix was complaining to the Chelsea social media team that Chelsea don't make a long sleeve shirt. He even made a bitchy comment. Oh, well, we had him at Atletico.
He's onto something.
Fuck you then.
I agree. That could be a separate podcast on its own. What happened to long sleeve football shirts?
Yeah. Mikel Merino wore a long sleeve Arsenal shirt this weekend, and I feel like it's the first time I've seen one.
I've not seen one in ages.
Because I think all players go to like the base layer one now, like a short sleeve of the base layer. That the long sleeve ones have sort of vanished. But when I saw Merino with one, I was like, "Hey, that looks weird."
Was it actually one? Was it actually a long sleeve?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't even make them now.
No, maybe some don't, but Scott can go on for a long time about Chelsea kits and their shortcomings. So I think we can breeze past that one. But yes, anyway, my beloved David Beckham signed Real Madrid shirt is up for grabs, so please do go and get as many entries as you can like Scott said, you can do it by subscribing or loads of other stuff, but it is going to help us grow. So thank you for those who've taken part already, and crack on. Right, let's do a bit of football stuff because I think that's why we're here. The weekend, Liam. Let's start with Bolton before we move into real football. Well, everything but the on-pitch stuff has been catching the headlines for Wanderers, hasn't it?
That seems to be happening quite a lot. I was thinking about this on the way in because I knew you'd be asking about this. So, if it's not players sneezing and doing the back in, or like, you know, it just seems like we just keep ending up front and center of like Football League Discord, if you will. So, yeah, in terms of the game itself, I imagine Scott's going to echo a lot of my thoughts that before the game, it's one that you want to win. However, sometimes in-game, things don't go your way. And what you want to see is a bit of fight and getting yourself back into it. And I think that's the way to look at it. And if you take a step back from that and look at the last 4 games in total, we've won 3, drawn 1. It's a better upturn in form. So if you'd asked me just after the game, I was frustrated, but it's not the end of the world. It's a 2-2 draw. We performed very well in the game. It just didn't go in for us, that third goal.
And a quick word on Ian Everett and the stuff after the final whistle.
Stupid. I think the context of that hasn't really got out as to why he was so frustrated.
Yeah, from the footage, it looks like that he's going to speak to the ref, and one of the opposition players is getting involved a little bit.
Yeah, that's absolutely what's happened. But I think in terms of why he was approaching the referee, he wasn't alone. Pretty much the entire Bolton backroom team and players surrounded the referee at the end of the game because there was an announcement of minimum of 8 minutes at a time, and it was blown up, still showing a 7 on the board. I think 7:50 or something like that. It might be a little bit later than that. It's definitely in the 50s. So Bolton were quite rightfully pointing at the screen going, what are you talking about? And that would be on the assumption there'd be no stoppages in that 8 minutes as well. So now, obviously what happens next is unacceptable, not great, all that stuff. But I feel like that context is important. And as someone who, on this podcast, I think I'm the most defensive of referees, I'm struggling to understand.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm struggling to understand how you come to that decision to blow up without the scene and 8 up there. I'm struggling to justify that in my mind as to why you've done that. And there were some decisions in the game that went against Shrewsbury, particularly, that I think may have played on the mind. But it's hard to sort of square that circle. But here we move on. We've got Aston Villa under 21s in the cup. What'll be this evening as it goes out on Tuesday, doesn't it? So we'll see how that goes. But
big one.
A big one. Yeah, I'll be there. Probably just me. So we'll see. George, who listens to the podcast, Aston Villa fan, I'll be going with George. So yeah, we'll see how we get on.
Scott, let's talk about Chelsea for a minute. Yeah. It was 1-1, but that doesn't tell the full story.
No, it doesn't. And Liam makes a good point, and he's right to sort of reference it to me as well, because very similar thoughts. So we came up against Nottingham Forest, who had an amazing start to the season. Really, really good. I mean, they've already turned over Liverpool at Anfield. So we knew that we were going to be in for a difficult game. The low block was inevitable, and it came. So I guess full of positives and some, I guess, a bit of pros and cons. So last season, when we came up against the low block, we were awful. We had no ideas, no creativity. Nothing was happening. This time, up against the low block, we seem to still create quite a lot of chances. And a bit like Liam was saying, that goal just wouldn't fall for us. So they got into the goal. They got into the lead rather. It was a poor goal to concede. It wasn't like a lot of the goals we have conceded. The defending wasn't amazing. Madueke was getting some stick in the first half for some alleged selfishness, which is a bit of a narrative that goes around about him. I don't really buy into it personally. I actually like my forwards shooting. I don't know why there's such a big uproar in that he shoots when he gets close, because it was only him and Palmer who fucking bother getting a shot off. God love Jadon Sancho, but he doesn't like shooting for some reason. But yeah, he got us back into the game, and we had so many chances after that. I mean, I think you shared one in the group that touch that Palmer did around whoever it was.
It's class that.
It's just disgusting. Like I've waxed lyrical about Cole Palmer enough, but that was an amazing double save from their keeper, and then Nkunku had a golden opportunity. I think it was like 87th minute. Mudryk.
Yeah, that was late on, wasn't it?
Very late on. Mudryk. Very quick side note. Mudryk's improving a lot, by the way. Last few games he's played, and when I was there on Thursday night, he was excellent as well.
We could be happy about that.
Yeah, it's only one way it could have gone, to be fair, Scott.
Yeah, well, the only way was up, to be fair. But nice to see, regardless. Got to show that what a proper coach can do.
Agreed.
But yeah, so Mudryk...
Still the coolest player in the Premier League, I would argue, as well.
I concur. He's even cooler since he cut all his beautiful hair off. I think that's made him even more cool, personally. But yeah, so Nkunku had a golden opportunity. Mudryk put it on a plate for him, and their keeper had a blind. I think he got man of the match. I think overall, and that says it all about the game. And Rob Sanchez was in similarly top form on the other end. I think both keepers were the respective team's best player. So that says it all about the game, really. But not the worst result in isolation. Would have been nice to go into the break on a win, but it is what it is. We're still in the top four.
Martin, to put you onto Arsenal, can I ask this question, right? If Mudryk is the coolest player in the league as a Ukrainian, is Zinchenko the least cool player in the Premier League? Because I would argue he probably is. But you can answer that question. And how do you think Arsenal got on with Aaron Ramsdale's glorious return?
First of all, that is honestly maybe one of the dumbest questions I've ever been asked. As a Ukrainian cool footballer, I know you've shed a tear since he's cut his hair off, and Luke's enjoyed mocking the Ukraine bolt to no end. But no, Zinchenko's fine. I think he represents his country very well.
Fine.
He's fine. I don't need him to be cool. I need him to be fit and do his job.
Don't know where to start with that statement, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, this isn't a political podcast. Let's not get into that. Arsenal, Ramsdale's return. Yes, I'm happy he got the reception that he got, because when I've shared my thoughts on Ramsdale and the whole situation on here, it seems to have been laughed at, and you two have gone like, why? Why do you even care? He's not that good. Or, why are you letting him go? He should be England's number one. Whichever I say, you two generally go the opposite, so it doesn't really matter.
That doesn't sound
but
like us.
It's
I've never said that.
It's a good job we've got these all recorded and people can go and listen if they want to. But he is a good goalkeeper. I'm glad he's playing. I do agree with you though, Liam, that he could have probably got a better move. It would have been better for him long term getting a better move, because I can see him moving this time next year.
Can I just clarify something on that as well? I called in the worst transfer in the league, and it wasn't because he's the worst player. I just think if Southampton had 20 million to spend, the goalkeeper wasn't where I would have spent it. But I think he could have got a better move. But yeah, go on.
As for the game, as I said, I was travelling to arse end of nowhere on Saturday, so I was listening to the first half on whatever dodgy signal I could get on the minibus, and then I watched like the last 20 minutes, and by that time we were already 2-1 up, so I'm happy with the result. By the sounds of it, I haven't seen any extended highlights, but by the sounds of it, we were just all Arsenal, and then Southampton broke away and got a goal, which was their rewards for continuing to play the way they do. And we saw this with Company and Burnley last year, but it's probably going to be their undoing this season as a Premier League team. So we'll see how long that lasts. I know, is it Russell Martin? Is that his name? I keep wanting to say Russell Peters, and I know that's not him. It's a comedian, isn't it?
Yeah, Russell Martin. Yeah,
Russell Martin. For everything he was praised for last year with Southampton, is going to be what he's criticised and probably ultimately ends up losing his job for at this stage in the Premier League. He's already, he's second in line to lose his job next, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Other than that, good result. I'm glad Sterling got a start. It was good to see Mourinho playing as well. Partey played right back. I think we've got a few injury worries, but hopefully all that'll be sorted out after the international break.
Any central midfielder can play right back.
Yeah, as proven in our careers. Some other highlights from the weekend.
Yes, Luke wanted to do this, didn't he? This was Luke's idea for a feature. Other highlights
Yes,
from
it
the weekend.
was.
What thing from the weekend stood out to me?
I'm just
What could it
really
be?
trying to think. Listen, I'm just going to put it to you. Scott, you can take the first go at this, but Eric Ten Hag, dead man walking. Question mark, over to you, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I called this in the predictions episode. I think that the Van Nistelrooy appointment was pretty much with a view that whoever they did some flirting in the summer with a few different names, and none of them really panned out for reasons only known to those involved. And I thought the Van Nistelrooy appointment was weird on a few different levels. One, because he was already a first team manager elsewhere. So why would you then go and take an assistant job? Not that everyone always has to stay in the same role, but
That was what was weird for me about it. The fact that he was willing to take a step down.
I got it because it's United. Like, is it better to be manager of, Bumall FC in the arse end of nowhere or assistant at Man United? Probably.
Yes, PSV.
Yeah, the PSV. Was it actually PSV he was manager of
Yeah.
at the time? Or had he just been...
No, he got sacked from PSV.
well, there you go then. But yeah, but my thinking was maybe it's just because it's United, it's his old club. He thought, fuck it, it's worth the experience. But the more I looked at it, I was thought, United were clearly shopping around. They wanted rid of him. They just couldn't get in whoever it is that they wanted for whatever reason it was. And I thought this was done so deliberately with the view that he'd be out by Christmas and Van Nistelrooy would be taking over at the very least until the end of the season because he'd be a popular choice with the fans. And I just think it's been extremely premeditated. So the fact that United are in this position doesn't surprise me because I kind of thought this is what they were banking on all along.
Liam,
Yes.
is Ruud van Nistelrooy a suitable appointment as the permanent manager for Manchester United?
No. I've not really got anything to add. Just a big, massive, obvious no.
Yeah, I agree. I'm exactly the same. But like Scott said, the fans will probably be happy if it's a till the end of the season job. And we're speaking as if Ten Hag has lost his job at this point. I mean, it was made pretty public that he's got 2 games to save his job, and that was Porto away and Aston Villa away.
Who knows? Who knows what Man United fans want? They'll never admit that they want a manager sack. They're weirdos. Like,
it's very true.
We're in a group with a lot of United fans, and they all say how bad it is. But as soon as you ask sack him, everyone just goes weird in their shells. You're not allowed to say it if you're a United fan for some reason. You're not allowed to want your manager sack. Weirdos.
Well, Luke does. Luke's been quite public about it.
Yeah, Luke has, because he's had to interact with other people. To be fair, I don't know why they kept him. Like, they finished eighth. Like,
yeah, it's a abysmal season.
You can fluke a cup. They nearly went out against Coventry. They were very, very lucky to not go out against Coventry in the semi-final. And then, they played the game of their lives against Man City in the final. But they finished 8th.
Right, so we're at the international break now. And as of recording this on Monday evening, there's no word of Eric Ten Hag's position at the moment.
Isn't there a board meeting on Tuesday, which will be today when this goes out? This super Ineos board meeting.
Plus Gary Neville.
Yeah.
The grown up.
Do you see him being there? Is it like this dead man walker thing? Is it just a matter of time now?
I don't know. Who knows? It's just weird, isn't it?
Who's there though? Because there's been talk of Tuchel. Martin, did you say Thomas Frank as well? Or was it you, Liam, who said Thomas Frank and somebody else?
I was just trying to wind Luke up in the group. I tried winding Luke up by saying Gareth Southgate and Thomas Frank with absolutely no basis of it. The rumours are that they're trying Tuchel again. They're ringing good old Tommy Tuchel one more time. Let's just bell Tommy, lad, see what he's up to.
Fucking gutted. He can't go there. He can't go to United. I'll be fucking heartbroken.
Scott, you can't be precious over managers. There are about 60 of them by the time we've been.
Yeah, I know, but this is why when there's one that you actually care about, that's what makes them so much more special. Because we have so many, it's very rare that one gets you here.
Scott, I think you've had Frank Lampard 3 times while we've been doing the podcast.
Yeah, but he's fucking toilet, isn't he? God love him as a player, but as a manager, he's just a different kind of shit. Yeah, I would
So-
not want Thomas Tuchel, but I can see them making a move, but it's just for who? Will Van der Sar, okay, get a new manager bounce, but
I just don't know. I don't know who to get
No.
because
there are basket case out there.
Will Tuchel be there long enough for it falling out with anyone to try and turn Man United around?
Oh yeah, he's an elite coach. He could get them winning something this season. I've no doubt. He's that good.
What?
Tuchel won the Champions League with Mount Werner and Havertz up front. If he can do that with them,
Jeff,
he can do it with anyone.
Scott, I don't think that our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ could turn Manchester United around in one season.
St. Tommy can.
But just to summarise, it is just a matter of time now. There's no way that Eric Ten Hag is in a job this time next year at Manchester United.
14.
Regardless of
able.
Yeah, regardless of him turning it around in the next 3-4 games, there's always going to be this spell and it's going to come back in it.
We said the same thing last year. Who fucking knows what Man United are doing? Weirdos.
Right. Liam, do you have any other highlights from the weekend? Has anything caught your eye?
Good question, Martin. I
can put one to you if you want. I've got one ready.
I think Tottenham.
Once.
Yeah, and I
Here
think that's
we
what you
go.
were going
I'm glad you
feel
brought
like,
this up.
yes, I felt like this was coming. So
Angie Spurs.
interesting performance, I think, Tottenham's. But what was interesting, I thought, more than, and I know obviously you're going to climb into it, Ange, and I get that. But what I thought was quite impressive was how Brighton changed how they were playing. Like the in-game management of Herzl, who was born in 1993, everyone. His in-game management to essentially completely change how they were playing against Tottenham because what they were doing wasn't working and they were just consistently giving the ball away to Tottenham was really good. And they really caught Tottenham cold and Tottenham essentially just couldn't react to that and looked a completely different team in the second half. So it was quite interesting to see that from Herzl, I thought.
Is this when we start seeing the tide turning on Ange? This media darling that he's become?
Is he? Is he a media darling?
Yeah, he is.
No, he's not.
He fucking is. Because you like him. So that tells me that
I am the media now. Is that...
Yeah, no, you're
technically.
Yeah, we are actually. To be fair, we're award-nominated podcast. We are. That's exactly what we are.
Okay.
And he's won you over.
I feel like
it was
Ange wouldn't consider us the media, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but he also doesn't consider having centre backs anywhere in their own half. So his judgment is poor, in my opinion. But he was a little bit under the cosh, wasn't he, before the United game? Like that game sort of, I think, papered over a lot of cracks. He came up against a god-awful Man United team.
Yeah. And
that was sort of, I don't know, I feel like that, if they'd have lost that game and then this had happened, I think the script would have been flipped on what we're talking about with Ten Hag. We'd be looking at Ange. I think I've said it since day one, since he got here, since I've watched his Spurs team play. Tactically, he's inept. His players aren't good enough. And I just don't see how what he wants to do is going to work here. I just not see how this kamikaze football is going to work.
Liam, you are a fan of the mighty Celtic
Yes.
over the border, so you have good history with Ange. The Celtic loving the you still have affection for Ange and his setup.
It's dynamic. It's unique. It's something different than certain other clubs that essentially will hire an assistant manager of Pep Guardiola. Can't think of two off the top of my head. But anyway, it's a true identity in how to play proper football. It will take time because it's such a unique way of playing it. And yes, obviously it's a little bit easier to implement in Scotland when you are essentially going to win most weeks anyway. So players will naturally buy into the philosophy a lot sooner. I do think that Spurs are onto something. He got them 5th last year. If he gets them in the top 4 this year, that's improvement. Football, I think the Premier League's going to change in the next sort of 12 months if Guardiola leaves City. And I think Tottenham would be silly to start again. I feel like they've got an identity and they're in a position where they make enough money to really get behind and invest in that. And I feel like they are 3 or 4 players away from being there. There are some weaknesses still in that team. I think they need a far better defensive midfielder than Bentancur. He's not even a defensive midfielder, to be honest. They need someone really, really high quality to play in that position if they're going to play with 2 8s. I also think he does need to consider the idea of if he's going up against team, particularly if you're 2-0 up, for example, having a bit more flexibility that you don't need to score 3 or 4. But I feel like this will come in time. It's still early. How was Arteta getting on after 18 months, Martin? I believe people were calling for him to be sacked at that point. You had your Arteta out t-shirt, I believe.
I was never Arteta out. Don't you put that on record, because it's lies. It's something that our listeners, our ever-growing fan base, is going to become accustomed to, is Liam O'Meara's lies. For me, Tottenham are just a team of a lot of players who flatter to deceive, and there's a lot of Ange signings in there now. He's been backed. I know that he can probably go for more, but there's a lot of players who flatter to deceive. Like who?
They are the better players in the team. So I would say Van der Ven is one of the better players in the team.
I like Van der Ven. I think Romero's a bit of he gets this moniker of that he's some flagship defender in the Premier League. I think he's bang average.
I think he's better than bang average, but I agree he's overrated. I do actually agree with that. I think what he's done with Kulusevski centrally has been a stroke of genius. Playing him central as opposed to playing on the wing. I think that's been absolutely fantastic. I think Solanke...
He's never looked any worse. Kulusevski's not looked any worse
than any other player in the league.
That's not true.
It is true. Well, it is true.
He's what?
He's created more chances than any other player in the Premier League this season so far. Here we go. Here's the Liam O'Meara fact check. Oh.
No, fine. If that's true, fine. But he's not getting Tottenham anywhere. I like Kulusevski, but he's not someone I would consider flatter to deceive. Whatever he's doing with James Maddison is
playing him too deep in it. Scott, can you just apologise? Because I realise you just checked that. Can you just apologise?
He's not coming up. He's just showing me big chances,
right,
which is Saka's top of that.
Big chances.
But all those are corners. Apparently, the class in corners is a big chance.
That's an assist all of a sudden now. And anyway, goals that go in off own goals, you still get assists for. You got assist every game. Anyway, it's not about Saka. I think we've covered the Premier League now. Do you think we've covered the Premier League? I think we've covered the Premier League.
I will agree with you on something. They are doing something different. 9th place is different to 4th. I will say that. 9th is a bit different to that. So yeah, hats off to them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Liam that. No, sorry, I more agree with Scott than you, Liam, that Angie's pretty bang average. But yes, we'll move on. In fact, we'll have a quick break and then we'll talk about the big news from today. And we're back. Big news today, Liam. Manchester City have won something against the Premier League that isn't related to the 115 charges that they are currently fighting as well. What is it?
So, one, in inverted commas, I think is the best thing to do, because both sides are claiming victory, as often does when there is a legal case being argued, which is what football is becoming more and more. So many massive, huge cases being discussed at the moment. I think we were discussing whether to do the Lassana Diarra ones. Not even touched on that. That may be for another day. One. Yeah, I don't really got my head around that one yet, so maybe do that one another day. But we'll talk about today with Man City and associated party transactions. So this isn't to be confused with the 115/130 charges that they're currently up for under PSR that is currently being sat right now. That's happening not as we talk, because it's the evening, but that is currently being sat, and I think there'll be a decision on that in the new year, and that will be a much bigger outcome. But this does change quite a lot, and it is quite interesting. So this is to do with essentially transactions with parties that are close to your ownership group, and these rules were kind of rushed in after Newcastle's takeover by the PIF Saudi group. So
this means that them or
an umbrella company.
Like, yes, so this means like an umbrella company of
Yeah.
the owners could give, I don't know, £100 million to sponsor the left sock of Anthony Gordon, and then that just inflates the books, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of different ways I imagine that this could do. So, when associated party is quite an interesting term, and I'm not actually looked at the legal definition of that if one exists. I don't know if one actually exists or not. But I think a lot of it was to do with the idea of multi-club ownership. I think the concern may have been that those 4 clubs owned in Saudi by PIF as well could pay inflated fees for Newcastle players to allow them to essentially inflate the money for PSR. I imagine that's why this came about. But multi-club ownership is very much part of this, and City have that. I think Chelsea had a similar concern, didn't they? I think they got a bit worried, a bit tetchy last minute with one of their 9 goalkeepers or 900 goalkeepers that they have potentially moving to Strasbourg. I think off the top of my head, Scott, I think that's your...
Yeah, there was a striker going to move. There was a lot of back and forth. How true it was, I don't know. But there was alleged a really big fee for one of our very young strikers. And then it sort of all got pulled at the last minute because, like you said, concerns around these murky waters that this sits in. So
essentially what the Premier League... The rules are still in place. So for the Premier League to claim victory, these rules haven't been thrown out, and it hasn't been found that they are unfair. The idea, the concept behind why they're doing this. So they still exist. What City have won, and I put inverted commas won, is a couple of essentially... I'm trying to think the best way to put this. A couple of variations of it. So, for example, shareholder loans, which was excluded on this completely, which primarily affects some of the bigger clubs with American investment. I think Arsenal particularly have quite a lot of ownership in terms of what they call soft loans, where they're putting it as a loan in there.
Yeah, I think us, Arsenal, Everton, Brighton, it's been seen as an unfair advantage to have a shareholder loan. Basically, one of your shareholders chuck 200 million at you with zero interest, pay it back however, whenever type deal, just to help balance the books, which I'm probably sure is mostly common practice or has been in most clubs anyway.
Yeah,
I expect it would have been.
Yeah, to be fair, that was soft loans was really what Bolton's biggest problem were when they in financial ruin. Soft loans from Leona Eddie Davis. So soft loans I don't like, because that's essentially what caused all of Bolton's problems. But obviously Arsenal's a very different beast to Bolton Wanderers. However, in terms of other parts of this, the sponsorship deals of Man City, of the Etihad and the First Abu Dhabi Bank, are now to be reconsidered because there's a lack of benchmarking in terms of what is fair and what is reasonable. Those benchmarking rules, I believe, weren't up to standard and left everything open to interpretation and in hyphens vibes. So
well, they've been classed as unlawful. The Premier League,
Yeah.
the term that they've used is that these rules set in place by the Premier League are unlawful.
Exactly. Yeah. And City, I believe now, are potentially looking at financial damages of the lost revenue they've had on those because they were halted, those particular sponsorship deals. So they're now potentially looking for...
Just take the win, City, and move on. You've got bigger fish to fry. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, this is it. So the next steps, I believe, are all 20 clubs are going to be rushed into emergency meetings to agree on a new set of rules to essentially implement what has been found at the independent... is it independent commission? I think it's independent commission.
Well, I think one thing that, especially a club like Arsenal and Everton, who are the two highest clubs who, along with Chelsea as well, are up there, but and I'll get onto that in a second. They're changing these rules could see the loans be reinstated with commercial loan rates applied. So that 200 million that Arsenal owe to Josh Kroenke or whoever they owe it to will now be massively increased because it'll have the general interest or even minimal interest rates of regular loan fees, and then that could then affect their PSR rules, FFP rules, whatever. As an Arsenal fan, and obviously we've just heard about this today, and now I'm an expert on financial football, and seems to be the topic every other week. But surely this then opens the door for us. I mean, like you've pointed out loads of times, Liam, we play at the Emirates Stadium. We've worn Emirates on our shirts for 20 years. Like, I think having sponsors like that to match the way City are going to now approach these deals and get other sponsors on board for different sorts of deals, I don't think, and to be fair, I don't think Arsenal as an entity would ever have this sort of problem.
Well, this is quite an interesting point you raise, actually, because one of the things City did try and prove was that these rules were essentially designed to target Gulf state involvement in the British game, and that was thrown out. They basically said that's not why it is.
Right.
That's not what's going on here. So that was quite an interesting sort of side thing on it. I don't want to go as far to say that they're trying to argue that the rules are racist, but I feel like it was sort of inferred potentially. But that got thrown out.
Scott, do you see anything in the? So also that brought with the news is that some clubs give evidence in favour of City, and some clubs give favouring evidence of the Premier League. Now, Chelsea and Newcastle being two of the clubs that are potentially part of the problem and will face a similar issue to Arsenal, despite I think there was a table of how much loans that the clubs have taken on. Chelsea and Newcastle were up there. Arsenal, Everton were at the top. Everton up there by a long way, by the way. Well in front.
Nearly 600 million quid, wasn't it? Something crazy.
Yeah, but Chelsea, Newcastle, Forest, Everton, clubs who've called it close on some PSR stuff in the past were in favour of City's argument, whereas your favourite group in the Red Cartel were in favour of the Premier League, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, and then some others like West Ham, Brentford, what people would call honest proper clubs, Wolves, Fulham, working man's clubs. Yeah, they were all also in favour of the Premier League's vote. Did you read anything into that?
It's hard not to. Like we joke about the cartel. I also do think I don't really know what I think about it, but I think I do believe there's some form of self-preservation with United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. I think they see themselves as these legacy clubs that we need to stick together. I don't know what it is, and I don't have any proof. That's what I believe.
But I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I'll find out for those meddling kids.
I think you're right, Scott. To an extent, I think they do it. I think self-preservation do exist. I think where I draw the line is, I don't think they're colluding. Actually, saying that, the Super League actually suggests that they did.
They definitely do. They definitely have these discourses.
But yeah, I'm not sure I can buy into the Red Cartel. But they definitely.
I defo fucking. It's no. But the weird thing is, it's almost hard not to read into it, because the clubs that backed essentially were on the side of Man City in this were the clubs who are probably not a big fan of the current set of rules. And I'm generalising this. I'm sure there's nuances to all of this in this particular set of circumstances.
As we call them, the rule breakers.
Yeah. Oh, fuck off. But like in there, you've got Forest who've been in trouble, Newcastle, Chelsea have been in the headlines for various reasons. But then on the other hand, like you just pointed out, the Emirates Arsenal connection, surely Man City winning this helps you in that regard, because then that opens the door. You can see why Chelsea would maybe want Clear Lake Capital to sponsor us for £500 million and just fix our shirt sponsor issue. So I don't know why you wouldn't be on their side for that, to try and open that door and make those rules a little bit more relaxed. I don't know.
Well, my only thoughts on that would be anything we can do, and by we I mean fellow cartel members, can do to keep City down. I think we're in favour of, and we're following the current rules, and you guys are trying to change that. So any change to that could affect us long term as well.
It's an advantage.
Yeah.
Arsenal, United, and Liverpool have a commercial advantage over anything, and we live in a world now where I believe Man City post higher revenues than Manchester United
And Real Madrid, by the way.
and Real Madrid. So it's like when you can, well, this is it, and when you consider that, you can understand why these associated party transactions are so important. When you talk about self-preservation, is it just that, or is it in the interest of fairness? Man United, Arsenal, and Liverpool, they've created these brands over a long time. They haven't just happened. These are organizations that have worked a long time, created a lot of brand strength, and now that's just being essentially destroyed almost. But I see both sides, Scott. I don't think it's all.
But sorry, like I said, I don't think whatever rule changes happen will really affect Arsenal, Man United, and Liverpool much. So I'd be more worried if I was a Bournemouth with 100 million loan to someone that then had a massive amount of interest put on top, and they don't have the commercial weight that those big clubs do.
I wonder for these as well, where they could just turn the loans into shares. To be fair, like there's always ways around it with numbers.
Yeah,
of course there'll be ways around it. Yeah.
Todd Bowley's lawyer gets paid a lot of money to think of this stuff ahead of time and to already have a way around it. And I'm sure all the owners are the same. And so, I don't know if there's much to read into the allegiances, who was on whose side, other than they've all got a vested interest in being on the side that they're on, for whatever that may be. One thing I thought was really interesting, well, two things really, was that as a result of this, it's now, because it used to be down to the clubs to prove that the sponsorship deals they were putting forward to the Premier League were fair market value. That's now no longer the case. So it does beg the question: who then decides what fair market value is?
That's a good question.
So
sorry, Scott. I think you've raised a really good question. I jumped in there. Sorry, but I think that sounds like a solution almost, doesn't it? That. Could that be independent? But is anything truly independent, I suppose, would be the argument. But
yeah,
I feel like that, because at the moment it is done by the Premier League, isn't it? On what is fair. And this is where that tyranny of the majority that we all took the mick out of City saying, but it kind of does hold water, that saying, if everyone else is sort of deciding what's fair and right for them, when theoretically they're the team that's winning everything, they're the ones to be shot at.
That's a good point.
So
they're the ones who could say we can command this ridiculous sponsorship because we've won the Premier League 5 times in a row and so on. So it does open it up as to who then decides that. And so now it's going to be down to somebody else. It's not going to be down to the clubs to abide by a certain set of rules and prove it's fair. It's going to be, well, we don't know. It's going to be who it's going to be judged by now. I assume, as Gary Neville's favourite, an independent adjudicator will be brought in.
It's got to be a governing body within the Premier League for me who's got to do that. And whatever comes of that is what it is. Like I say, even though we may be in a sticky situation now, I'm not too worried about it. I'm confident that we'll be able to get that sorted out.
Like, even the worst case scenario, teams will be given plenty of time to get the ducks in a row. Like, you don't just sudden real changes just aren't in force.
Yeah.
That'd be like givemesport.com or like, football, like, you know what I mean? Like all these stupid Twitter sites will now be saying, oh my God, Arsenal have 6 days now to comply. Like, no, they'd be given plenty of time to adjust the books.
Is this, just to wrap this up, and then I've got a couple of questions for you both. Is this a moral victory for City with regards to the 115 charges case?
I would say it's a bit more than a moral victory, although they're not strictly connected as such. Like, well, I actually don't know because I don't know every single charge in and out. So this City will see this as a massive win, and it will certainly go towards. If I'm City's lawyer representing them in this case, I'm going to be referring back to this. The rules themselves. It's almost like this negates all the other rules because we've already found that one set of rules is unlawful. So what's to say that the rest of them aren't unlawful? And I would be amazed if this doesn't play a part in City's defence. I think it's definitely a moral victory. All the headlines are City win against the Premier League. That's can't understate how big that is in terms of the perception of the case and the perception of City. But this is 100% going to get worked into their arguments for the rest of the charges, I think. Be amazed if not.
Cool. Right. Well, let's wrap this up. I've got one fan question for you both, and then we'll wrap it up.
Ooh.
Favourite, they say you should never fall in love with a lone player.
Oh, God.
But we've all got one.
Oh.
I did have 2 questions, but I'm going to save one for next week now. Because it's international break and everyone can't be asked with that. So, I just would like you both to name, I'll go first, by the way, but you can have a think while I'm chatting on, your favourite loan players who you've had at your club. And these can't be players who've then signed permanently.
Oh, fuck big.
So, I'm going to start, and I've got one's got an asterisk. That's Thierry Henry, because he came back on loan. So he obviously didn't sign permanently then, but he had that history. So it's hard to class that one as my favourite loan signing that Arsenal ever made. But just for that moment against Leeds was absolutely unbelievable. And he says it's his favourite goal of his career. He celebrated it like a fan. He loved it. So my other honourable mention for Arsenal as a loan player, never signed permanently, is Yossi Benayoun. Because he had a really good season for us when he came in. So he gets a mention. But my favourite loan player who never signed permanently, because the ones who did sign permanently would be Odegaard and Raya. They're 2 of my favourites who we've ever had. But Julio Baptista, I love that guy. I wish he could have stayed. 4 goals at Anfield, couple of free kicks, absolute beast, the beast. So he's my favourite loan player that Arsenal have ever had. Who would like to go next? Scott, Chelsea have had a million loan players, by the way.
You know what? We haven't had that many players. We've sent fucking every man and his dog on loan, but loan signings in, there hasn't been that many, and none that I'm thinking like Saul from Atletico Madrid. He was fucking useless.
Quaresma, that was a loan, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
Was it not?
I'm pretty sure it was a permanent. We had, and again like Higuain, also shit.
Yeah.
Alexandra Pato, awful. So I can think of some, but favourite, oh god, it would have been Felix but you've now negated him. So I'm going back and seeing who else we've had on loan, because this is a tricky one. But Liam, by all means,
well,
if you have one at the top of your brain, you go.
We've had a lot, obviously, but of the clubs that we all follow, it'd be us that have the most loan players, and some of them are more famous, I would say, in terms of like people talk about, like Jack Wilshere springs to mind on loan.
It's a good one.
Daniel Sturridge, he was particularly good, I would say. Brilliant when we had Sturridge on loan. But the one that sticks to me is probably a little less known to Premier League fans that we follow, but we had Lukas Djukovic in one of our first seasons in the Championship on loan. And I think that was from Everton at the time.
Where was he? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember him.
Yeah, he was on loan from Everton. And he's been at Birmingham for years now. We went all in to sign him in the summer, and he went to Burnley in the end, who I think had just been promoted to the Premier League. So he went to Burnley instead, but really, really powerful number 9, great touch, one-touch finisher, scored in big games, linked up the play really well, a proper Bolton forward. A natural heir to the Kevin Davies throne, and it didn't work out. So I'd say him sticks out, and I think Craig Dawson sticks out as well when we had him on loan, which is the first year back in the Championship. Yeah.
Did he not go permanent though?
No.
Oh, right.
No, he didn't go permanent. We had him for the second half of the season, and when we went on a really good run in the second half of the year to try and get into the playoffs of the Championship, never materialised, unfortunately. He missed the last game because they did the loan deal incorrect, which meant he was ineligible for the last game of the season at home to Blackpool. And in a game Ian Everett scored in, I think, off the top of my head, for Blackpool. So, yeah, they're the 2 that probably spring to mind most. But there's so many. Like, I could sit naming loan players all day, to be honest. But I'll let you go now, Scott. You've had some time to think about it.
Yeah, I've been going back on good old transfermarket.co.uk because I was honestly racking my brain for loan players. I've gone back to the 96-97 season. We really haven't had a lot of loan players even in all that time. And correction, you were correct, Liam. Ricardo Quaresma was a loan. I thought he was permanent, but he was a loan signing. So
Don't worry, I'll do your club knowledges for all of you instead. Don't worry.
No, shut the fuck up.
I also don't think
but he was also.
counts either.
But another one, Quaresma was also shit.
Yeah,
So,
all right, fair enough.
My loan signing, he's actually one of my favourite players for Chelsea. It has to be Jadon Sancho. Not yet a permanent signing. He likely will be. But I want to give an honourable mention to someone who I completely forgot played for us, and that is George Weah. He joined us on loan for a bit.
George Weah, Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, Ballon d'Or winner George Weah once wore a Chelsea shirt.
Was it just after the Ballon d'Or he signed for Chelsea on loan as well?
Hold on.
I bet it
what a weird career move to make. Was it like 2000 or something? Where is he?
No, I think it was like earlier than that. I think 97.
No, the 1990-2000 season. We also signed Didier Deschamps that year and Chris Sutton in a record transfer at the time.
Jesus Christ, that was a stinker of a window, that.
Chris Sutton. Oh, Emerson Tom. He was in there. Remember him?
He played for us, Emerson Tom.
Yeah, he was there. Deschamps, George Weah, Emerson Tom. Chris Sutton was shit as well. He was so good for Blackburn, and for us, he was absolutely useless.
Didn't George Weah go to Man City as well? I'm trying to work that out. I've got a feeling that George Weah went to Man City.
Yeah.
He did. For one goal. He played for PSG, AC Milan, Chelsea, Man City, Marseille, and Monaco. It's not a bad career.
And then became the president of Libya.
Yeah.
What a man.
And his son still won't play for them.
Right, that wraps it up, boys. Favourite loan players. If anyone else has got a loan player that they fell in love with that didn't sign permanently, that's the asterisk. Scott's got away with one there because Sancho's not signed permanently yet, but then there's still time for him to let you down too. So
I'll tell you, Luke's will be Henrik Larsson as well. I guarantee that.
Oh God, yeah.
Did he not go permanently though? Did he stay on loan?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did actually. So yeah, you can't have that.
No, he didn't. Did he?
I feel like he did.
To United? No.
Anyway, yes, please comment then below because I'm interested to know. It's like should never fall in love with a loan player. Just going to break your heart. Anyway, as we mentioned earlier, please get involved with the competition and you can win one of my prize possessions. Get yourself a piece of football in history, a signed David Beckham Real Madrid shirt, and you can do that. You can go to our social media and find all the instructions there. While you're doing all that, please vote for us as the best podcast Premier League at the Football Content Awards. It would really, really, really mean a lot if we could get a good amount of votes on there. Just a little podcast up in Bolton, but we're doing big things and we want to keep growing, and that would really mean the world to us if you did vote. So thank you for those who have. All the information for every episode can be found at fixingfootballpodcast.com. And it's now the international break, so woohoo. We're going to have to find something else to talk about next week. In fact, next week we can do the FPL draft, which was meant to be tonight. The FPL draft window is open. So let's get that involved. And I've got another fan question for next week, so you can have a think about...
one fan has been...
About your Mount Rushmores of football. I'm just going to leave that with you. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Say bye.
See you in a bit.